It was supposed to be an ordinary flight, but what unfolded thousands of feet above the ground became a chilling reminder of how racism hides in plain sight. A black CEO, dressed in a tailored suit, carrying the weight of years of hard work, was suddenly told to give up his VIP seat, not for safety, not for logistics, but simply because a white passenger deserved it more. What happened next not only shocked the passengers, it forced the airline to face a storm it could no longer ignore. Watch until the end to find out. Wait a second. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Marcus Bennett wasn't just any traveler. He was a self-made CEO of a rising tech company, a man who had turned late nights and endless rejection into global recognition. For him, flying first class wasn't a luxury. It was earned comfort after years of struggle. On that day, Marcus walked through the airport like anyone else. His assistant had booked his ticket weeks in advance, and a VIP suite had been prepared for the long journey across the ocean. The flight crew greeted him politely, though he noticed the stiffness in their smiles. He brushed it off. After all, he had grown used to the subtle looks, the silent question in people's eyes. Does he belong here? Seated in the front, Marcus adjusted his watch. He opened a file, planning to use the flight to prepare for a major investor meeting. But as the cabin filled, a storm was quietly brewing. A passenger across the aisle, a man with power stitched into his clothes, kept glancing at Marcus's seat with growing dissatisfaction. It started with whispers. A flight attendant leaned down, murmuring to the white passenger who gestured toward Marcus. At first, Marcus thought nothing of it. But then the attendant approached him, voice low but sharp, telling him there had been a mix-up and that his seat was no longer available. Marcus looked at his ticket, clear as day. VIP first class, seat confirmed. His name was printed, his payment cleared weeks ago. Yet the attendant avoided his eyes, insisting he needed to move. Around him, passengers began noticing. Some exchanged uncomfortable glances, others stared in silence, unwilling to interfere. The white passenger smirked, stretching his legs as though the outcome was already decided. Marcus felt heat rising in his chest, not just anger, but humiliation, the quiet reminder that no matter his wealth or title, some would always see him as less. When he refused to leave, another attendant joined, their tone colder, threatening to call security. Marcus's heart pounded. He had faced boardrooms filled with doubt, investors who dismissed him because of the color of his skin. But this was different. This was public. This was meant to shame. The silence in the cabin grew heavier, broken only by the hum of the engines. And then, it escalated. The captain himself entered the cabin, his presence commanding. Everyone expected him to side with his crew. Instead, he listened, observing the tension in Marcus's clenched jaw, the smug grin of the white passenger, and the unease rippling through the rows. Then, in a voice steady as steel, the captain announced that Marcus would not be moved. Instead, the entire flight crew that had supported the injustice would be removed immediately. Gasps filled the cabin. The attendants protested, but the captain stood firm, calling ground staff to escort them off. The white passenger's face turned pale, his entitlement crumbling into disbelief. The passengers erupted in murmurs, some applauding, others stunned into silence. Marcus sat frozen, a storm of emotions tearing inside him. Relief, pride, but also sadness that it had taken such a spectacle to defend what was already his right. For once, the system did not let him down. But the weight of that moment pressed deep. This wasn't just about a seat. It was about dignity stolen and fought for in plain view of strangers. The flight eventually continued, but Marcus's thoughts stayed heavy. The investors' meeting, which he had been waiting for, suddenly felt less important than the reality he had just faced. Here he was, a black CEO praised in business magazines, invited to conferences worldwide, yet still reduced in seconds to a man unworthy of a chair he had rightfully paid for. News of the incident spread quickly once passengers posted about it online. The captain's bold decision to replace his entire crew became both celebrated and criticized, sparking debates across social media. Some saw it as justice finally delivered. Others, blinded by prejudice, claimed it was overreaction. For Marcus, it was a reminder that progress is fragile, that every win is shadowed by the reality of how far society has yet to go. He stepped off the plane that day not just as a CEO, but as a symbol of resistance, proof that silence can no longer be an option. And so the question remains, how many more Marcus Bennetts must endure humiliation before the world understands that dignity is not a privilege, but a right? Which country and city are you watching from? Share in the comments. Take care.